Texas. It is Sunday, November 1st, and we have made it to Big Bend National Park. The map looks like it's a pretty big park, so I think we have a full day of activities. So let's get back on the road and get to it.
I know it's nothing new, but it's so good to see you.
The visitor centers here at Big Bend are closed, but we do have a map to at least be able to show you what our plan is today. So we are currently at the Pacific Gap Visitor Center. We've got this road here to Panther Junction, and that's kind of your main crossroads for the day. We're going to start out going down to Rio Grande Village to look at the Rio Grande. Then we're going to come back up, do Chisos Basin, back up, and then come and do the Ross Maxwell Scenic Drive, which ends at Santa Elena. And then we have two options. We're not quite sure what we're going to do yet. We either backtrack out of the park, or we're going to take Old Maverick Road to Maverick Junction. It's a little bit windy, so I think we'll probably be adding a few layers before we get back outside after the drive.
We do this every day, and I'm still so amazed by you. So hold me tight through the night.
So we are here at Panther Junction. This is really kind of the hub of the park. It is also the park headquarters, and it's where all of the different roads that we're going to be taking today start or connect.
It's just us two, me and you. I can't believe you love me.
So we got some good info. They had some people doing selling, so we did get our patch and our sticker, and then they had another gentleman who was doing just more information for questions people had, so we got a little bit more info on the Old Maverick Road, so we can decide later on this evening if that's the road that we're going to want to take, depending probably on how much sunlight and daylight we have left. So now on to Rio Grande.
Feel so lucky, still can't believe you love me. I hope it never ends, let's be more than friends, yeah. You know I'm here to stay.
Our first stop on the way to Rio Grande Village is Dugout Wells. This site used to be a schoolhouse and an old homestead. It did also say that there was a spring here, so I'm assuming that this windmill behind us is atop where the spring used to be. You can actually hear it as it's working, and it's still generating and pumping out water from the source.
Every single day, yeah. So hold me tight through the night.
We are at our next pullout for the Rio Grande Overlook. It's just a short walk up this hill, and it's supposed to have some commanding views of the river, and then also you can see into Mexico. Also, I want to point out, you've probably heard me say interchangeably Rio Grande and Rio Grande. I'm not exactly sure which the correct pronunciation is, so whatever comes out at the time is what I'll be saying, but you'll probably hear me saying both of them. When we were looking up the weather in the park, I'm not sure where it had the weather sensors stationed. It said the high today was only supposed to be 63. It's currently 81 at about a quarter to noon. So much warmer, another hot part here in November, but at least we have the wind, which does seem to help.
It's just us two.
One misconception, or one thing I think we should probably correct, is that even though this is called the Rio Grande Overlook, you don't actually get to see the river from here. The sign me speaks that it's more the floodplain, so I'm not sure if in very rainy seasons, if you do end up getting a little bit of overflow water through here, but you don't actually get to see the river itself from this vantage point. So this is our first actual view of the Rio Grande. It is right behind us, and we are at the Rio Canyon Overlook. So our first chance to see the river.
Falling into your arms, dancing up in the stars. Oh, where I'd rather be.
We have stopped here at the Rio Grande Village to pull out some lunch and to refill our water. The visitor center here is closed, but it's a good stopping point for us to get some food, use the restroom before we start our next leg of the trip. Not a lot of people here today. Besides us, there's only one other car in the parking lot, and they are having a picnic in the shade.
At the end of the 6-mile road for Chisos Basin, you come to the visitor center. There is an area here where they have lodging and I believe camping as well, and it's also the main point for a lot of the hikes here in this section of the park. The drive in was actually very nice. You climb elevation till you hit about 5,700 feet, which is the high point of the park. It's Panther Junction, but you pass through a lot of changing landscapes from the desert floor up into the mountains, and so it was nice to see. So far for the park, I would say this has probably been a favorite just because of the changing landscape and cooler weather. We are now beginning the third leg of our scenic drives. This one is the Ross Maxwell Scenic Drive. It's about 30 or 33 miles long. And it looks like this section of the park actually has a lot of history that we'll hopefully be able to get to see, including, you know, areas that had old ranches and also an old army installation. So looking forward to getting more of the history or the historical side of what this park is.
Still can't believe you love me.
Our first stop here is at Sam Nail Ranch, which is the site of their old homestead, and I believe there are a couple of windmills that we can still see there, and then also some non-native plants. They planted willow and pecan trees by their homestead. The sign at the trailhead said it's a 5-minute walk down to the home site, so we are on our way.
As we're getting closer, we can see 2 windmills. It looks like one is working and one is very old and not in operation at all. Just behind me, it looks like there's some foundation there. So the remnants of the homestead, which is pretty cool.
So the windmill sits atop the well, which actually helps to pump the water out of it. And even though the homestead is gone, the well and the windmill are still in operation, which gives water to this area, helping the non-native trees still thrive and flourish. And it probably also helps the animals who happen to pass through this area for a cool drink of water. Here inside the shade of the grove trees that are here, it's much cooler. There's a wind coming through, which we felt in the heat on the trail, but in here I can see why you would want to plant the trees and then build your home in here, because it definitely takes the edge probably off of the hot Texas summers.
Believe you love me, oh, oh, oh. I just feel so lucky, oh, oh, oh.
We're at the second windmill, or the second well. This one is no longer in operation. It looks like the wood has rotted and broken. If you peer down, you can see a little bit of the mechanism. Obviously, I don't know how far down these go. That would be kind of something that would be interesting for them to talk about or describe, whether or not they had to dig, you know, just a few feet, or if these wells go down quite a distance to reach the water.
We're just about finishing up our little trek here. It was pretty neat stop just to see all the old foundations and then the windmills and everything, and the shade was very nice. But if you're out this way and you want to make a good little stop along the route, I would definitely recommend this.
Wanna be free of this heart, yeah. Wanna feel your arms around me. I need you more, need you here, more than I would like to admit. Let's forget about tomorrow.
So in the distance is the Homer Wilson Ranch. It was an active ranching area, but it was abandoned in 1945. When the ranch was active, they had about 4,000 sheep and about 2,500 goats. And the sign talks about how they would take refuge from the hot summer days in the coolness of the shade that the mountains behind us produced.
Yeah, should I hide away forever? Should I close my eyes and never again hold you tight, call you mine, think about you ever?
We are here at Sodal Vista, which has an overlook into Mexico, the Rio Grande and Santa Elena Canyon, which is the end of the Ross Maxwell Scenic Drive. It also talks about the sodal plant, which was used by the Native Americans not only for food, but also some alcohol, and then they could use the branches, I think, also for like making ropes and things like that.
Every time I remember that it's over, yeah. You never break, you never lie, you never ever scared of the dark. So why am I the one who cries? I'm so afraid to be left behind. I think about you a lot.
We are at the start of the trailhead for the Lower Burro Mesa pour-off. If we had a little bit more time, we were going to try to hike this. It's only a mile out and back, but just due to time constraints, to make sure that we can get to all the different areas of the park today, and then the 2-hour drive to our hotel, unfortunately we're going to have to cut it off. But based on what I read beforehand, it seems like it'd be similar to the pour-offs that we saw when we were in Death Valley, where the water just kind of flows over a cliff and creates these little hollow tubes almost that are pretty tall and pretty impressive to be inside of.
It's almost like I can't stop, yeah. You never lose an argument, so I've been trying hard to pretend that I'm okay. It's just
Over my right shoulder, we're at the Mule's Ears Overlook. So over my right shoulder, you can see the mountains that are aptly named after the mule ears. In the 1930s, the Army Air Corps actually did flying drills by flying their planes in between the mule's ears.
face, and everything is going just great. I think about you a lot. It's almost like I can't stop, yeah. I always knew that this would happen, yeah. You would find a new distraction. I need you more.
In our short walk to this overlook, I completely forgot what Tough Canyon is all about. But there it is behind me. Tough Canyon. Back in the car, where we have kind of a second set of reading materials. It says Tough Canyon was carved by Blue Creek through layers of lava flows, boulders, and compressed volcanic ash called Tough. Tough Canyon.
Need you here more than I would like to admit. Can we let go of tomorrow? Yeah. You never break, you never lie, you never ever scared of the dark. So why am I the one who cries? I'm so afraid to be left behind. I think about you a lot. It's almost like I can't stop. Can't stop. Yeah. You never lose an argument.
So we are in the area called Castellone. Originally it was like a pioneer frontier trading post area, and then after some issues from 1914 to 1918 with Mexico, the Army came in and set up a post here to kind of monitor things. Unfortunately, they did have a fire last year in early 2019, which destroyed many of the buildings. They do still have a couple that are standing, so great job to the fire crews working into the area to save some of this historic area. But it's a neat little piece of history of living in the frontier back in the early 1900s.
So I've been trying hard to pretend that I'm okay. It's just a phase, and everything is going just great. I think about you a lot. It's almost like I can't stop.
We are nearing the end of the drive and pulled over at this stop, which is supposed to give us access to the river. There are signs that say do not cross the river because you'll end up in Mexico and potentially face fines and jail time. So we're just gonna see if we can locate the river access and maybe dip a finger or two in.
Can't stop. Yeah.
The temperature outside is still 84 degrees, but we are now shaded by the mountains, which makes it significantly cooler without the sun beating down on you. So hopefully a pleasant walk down to the river.
It's almost like I can't stop.
We have made it to the Rio Grande behind us. If you listen closely, you can hear birds and different animals making noise, but you can also hear the river as it laps its way down.
We are now walking to the another part of the river where we're going to stick our hand in and see how cold the water is.
Yeah. Can't stop.
It's not too bad. On the sign out front, it did say that you could swim in there, and it did say that you could raft in there. But in order to raft or do anything like that, you need a permit from the visitor center. We were down by the river. The riverbank was really muddy. Not super muddy, but just enough to get your shoes a little bit muddy. So when we got back on the sidewalk here, we tried to do our best, knocking it out of our shoes so we don't dirty the car.
With the sun setting behind us, over my left shoulder is Santa Elena Canyon. We're at the Overlook here. The canyon itself is about 8 miles long, 115 feet deep, but some areas are only 30 feet wide or 30 feet across. So, you know, from this vantage point, it's really hard to see the river. We've seen a number of boats come through down the river. In 1852, it was thought to be impassable to come through Santa Elena Canyon, and so they actually tried sending down a wooden boat, which at the top of the canyon, and then when it came out 8 miles later, it was just wreckage. One of the surveyors was said to say that it is impossible to get through that area, but we know, as we've seen people coming down the river, that it is possible. They do offer float trips down through the area, so that could be something to try at a later date if we wanted to actually get on and experience the river. The point that they were saying was impassable is actually an area called the Rock Slide, where it's a jumble of rocks that looks like it's probably one of those areas that's only about 30 feet across, so you have to be very careful as you're navigating your way through. The road only goes for about another half mile or so to the start of the Santa Elena Canyon Trail, so we will not be driving that last portion. Instead, we are going to maybe drive quarter of a mile, probably even less than that, to try to find the start of the Old Maverick Road, which is a gravel road that goes for about 13 or 14 miles to the Maverick entrance station. We did check in with the visitor center before we started this, just to make sure that our four-wheel drive clearance would be good enough to drive. And they said we should be okay, just to take it really slow, probably going about 10 miles or so, and just taking the scenery along the way. We are standing in front of Luna's Hakal, which was built by Gibelter Luna to house his family. Back at the visitor center when we started this journey today, the park ranger had said that he had 3 wives and 33 children who lived here in this primitive house. Now, I don't know if all 3 wives and 33 children were at one time, but that is a lot of people living in there for a family here in the desert. We have made it to the end of Old Maverick Road. If you feel like flexing your off-roading muscles and driving almost 13 miles over rough and washboarded roadways, then this is the path for you. There's not much to see, to be honest, not even a lot of scenery in terms of plant life and things like that. But again, it's just something a little bit different to try if you're out here. That's gonna wrap up our day in the park. I think the 2 highlights for me were getting down to the Rio Grande River, and getting that close up to it, and then also when we were able to do the Chisos, I think it was, Basin Drive that took us up to Panther Peak and that higher elevation. Just because of the landscape change, it didn't really feel like you were in a desert park anymore with all of the trees and things like that. But that'll do it. We'll see you on the next adventure. Bye.